Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you here to our village, and I hope that you have enjoyed your tour so far. On this part of the tour, I will be your guide. My name is Buck the Squirrel. The area in which you are now seated, this was called the square grounds or the ceremonial grounds. This is where all the ceremonial dances would have taken place. Inside the square mound of sand you see built up around it. Every village had a square ground, and it was located as close to the center of the village as possible. Now, the reason that we use this sand is because our villages were never built on a hillside in a wooded area like you are in today. They would have been built down in the valleys next to the rivers. The reason for that is because the Cherokee people were farmers, and this sand would have been readily available. The size of this square depended upon the size of the village. Now, the smaller Cherokee villages, they had anywhere from 10 up to 15 families. Some of their square grounds could have been built a little bit larger than the one you see here today. Now, the larger villages, they had anywhere from 300 up to 500 families. Some of their square grounds, they could have covered up an area about the size of a football field. Now, on this mound, the four corners will point to the four corners of the earth. The pole that you see in the center that has the pine branches fastened to it, the original one would have not been built no larger than the one you see here today, and it was used only to shade the drummers. All the dances that were held here, they were all held on the inside of this mound. They were never held on the outside. The outside was considered to have been common ground, and the inside was considered to have been sacred ground. Anyone was welcome to take part, women and children. If you wanted to take part in these dances, you had to be on the inside of the mound before the dances would have started. The dances were called prayer dances. That's because Cherokees, they didn't worship any gods, any idols, or anything of nature. We've always believed in one supreme being, and that being the Creator. Now, where you're sitting at today, this is where you would have sat when you weren't taking part. Notice that it's sectioned off into 7 different sections. That represents the 7 clans of the Cherokee. Now, a little bit later, right down here in the council house, you're going to learn more about the Cherokee clan system. Each clan had their own section to sit in. No other clan sat inside another clan's area. Let's say the dances would have already started. You may have came to the ceremonies late, or you were sitting where you're sitting at right now, but you decided, well, I'm going to take part. So you went ahead and you stepped inside this mound. Now, if you got caught stepping inside, some of the men, they would have came and taken you to a post that was put at each corner. They tied you to the post, and you were left there to tell the remainder of the dances. Some of the dances lasted a day. Some of them lasted up to 7 days. And during this time, you were tied to the post. Also, you were not given any food nor water. Cherokees were very strict people, and they believed in hard discipline. And when our people done these dances, they didn't do them for entertainment or pleasure. They were done for ceremonial reasons only. And you never seen any type of fast dancing or fancy dancing like you'd see at a powwow. All of our dances were done at a slow pace in a circular motion. They did take breaks in the dances. You could step out during the break, and you were allowed to come back. If you stepped out before the break, you were not allowed back inside this mound. They used different types of instruments to bring rhythm to the dances. We have a few here today. We're going to show to you, explain to you how they were made and used. I'll explain about the ceremonial mast, about the eagle dance, Cherokee alphabet, and the Cherokee language. I'll even talk to you in the Cherokee language. That'll give you folks an idea of what our language sounds like when it is spoken, and I'll tell you about how most of our people worship today. Now, the first 2 that I have here, they're called ceremonial hand rattles. This one right here is called the Gourd Rattle. Now, these gourds, they raised them in the gardens. They weren't good for eating, but they did use them to make bird houses, water dippers, and like the rattle you see here. To make this rattle, you take the seeds out of the gourd and dry it out and replace them by using small kernels of corn or small stones and place a stick through the center. This one right here, that's called the Turtle Rattle. That's made by using a woodland terrapin shell. That's commonly known as a box turtle. To make this rattle, you cut the turtle out of the shell, then you dry it out, and you replace it by using the small kernels of corn or small stones and place a stick through the shell. Now, when our people use these types of hand rattles, this may have been a type of sound they would have gotten. Another type our people made and used, and this right here is called the leg rattle. Now this also was made by using the terrapin shells, and they were attached to a large piece of buckskin. Some of these leg rattles could have as many as 7 rattles attached to it. The reason is because the number 7, that was a sacred number to the Cherokee people. Now the one that wore this would have been the lady dancers. The Cherokee were one of the few tribes that allowed their women to take part. And the lady that wore this, she danced directly behind the lead dancer. It was tied right below the knee and right above the ankle. To get sound and rhythm from a leg rattle, they would have used their feet. It may have sounded something like this. Now, before the introduction of metal tools and knives, when our people made their drums, they made them out of clay, like you seen up in the pottery section. They would have attached some type of animal skin across the top. After the introduction of metal tools and knives, our people began making drums like the one you see right here. This right here is called a water drum. It's carved out by using buckeye wood. It's hollowed out down to about 1 or 2 inches from the bottom. The skin stretched across the top would have came from a groundhog. The reason they used the groundhog is because it was one of the toughest skins that was found in this area. Now the skin was held on by using a removable hickory band. The different tones that you got from this drum, that depended upon the amount of water that you placed on the inside. Another type our people made and used, this right here is called a single tone. That's commonly known as a tom-tom. And this drum also is carved out by using buckeye wood, but this drum's hollowed out all the way through. The skin also would have came from groundhog. Now some earlier drums that were made and used, some of them, they could have been twice as large as the one you see right here. But when they used this type of drum, this may have been a type of sound they would have got. When our people done these dances, we always had a lead dancer. Most of the time that lead dancer was a man. Sometimes it may have been a woman. Now this woman, she had to be an elder in the village. And when they led the dances, the lead dancer would wear some type of mask to show what type of dance was being done. Before the introduction of metal tools and knives, the masks were made out of tree bark. They carved them out by using a flint knife. To show what type of dance was being done, they would have attached some type of animal hair or by using whitewash that was gotten from crushed seashells. After the introduction of metal tools and knives, our people began making masks like the one you see right here. Now if the lead dancer wore a mask like this one, they could have been doing what they called a hunt dance or the bear dance. The night before that the men planned to go on a hunting trip, they'd all gather here at the square grounds and they'd have a prayer dance to ask the Supreme One for a safe and successful trip. Now upon the return, everything went well. They all gathered back here to give thanks for a safe and successful trip. Now some of you folks, you may have already went downtown or passed through town. You may have seen some gentlemen standing out here in front of these craft shops wearing all these brightly colored feathers. Now these gentlemen, they are Cherokee, but the regalia they wear, that's not of the Cherokee people. Cherokees did not wear a lot of feathers. That's more of your Western or your Plains Indians. Our chief, he did wear feathers, but he wore the feathers only for ceremonies. There was a dance our people did that feathers were used. The dance was called the Eagle Dance, and this dance was done in 3 parts: for victory, for peace, and to give thanks to the eagle for the use of its feathers. Now these wands, the handles, were carved out by using sour wood. Sour wood was a sacred wood to the Cherokees because it blooms 7 times in one season. The feathers came from a golden eagle. The golden eagle is a sacred bird to the Cherokee people. Not only to the Cherokees, but other Indian tribes as well. Only the men were allowed to take part in this dance. When they done the dance, they held the wands out at arm's length to show representation of the eagle in flight. Cherokees were very superstitious. they believed that if any part of these wands touched the ground or touched this mound in any way, they believed that the man carrying these wands or someone in his family would soon die. Now, I want to tell you about the Cherokee alphabet. The Cherokee alphabet was written and invented by a man by the name of George Gist. His Cherokee name was Sequoia. Now, he was born over near a place called Fort Loudon, Tennessee. Spent most of his earlier life in northern Alabama. When he was trying to create this alphabet, there were two major failures before he was successful. The first one, he tried to create a character and a symbol with every word, but there were far too many words. On the second one, he tried to create a character with every sentence. He found too many ways of creating a sentence. Now, upon his third and final, he'd sit and he'd listen to our people speak the language. Then, by hearing the sounds of the language, he was able to complete the alphabet using 85 different symbols. It took him 12 years to complete it. During this time, Sequoia could not read, write, nor speak any other language but Cherokee. Today, a lot of these historians, they claim Sequoia to have been an illiterate genius. Thanks to Sequoia and other men, we had our own newspaper. The paper was called the Cherokee Phoenix, printed down in a place called New Echota, Georgia. New Echota, that's the last known capital of the Cherokee Nation. The paper was printed once a month, printed in Cherokee and in English. Now, the reason they printed it in English was so the settlers could also read the paper. At one time, they thought that the Cherokee language was dying out. This was due to intermarriages or just a lack of interest upon our part. It mainly had to do with a lot of lack of pride. A long time ago, they came and took the young Cherokee children and they put them in boarding schools. Now, in these boarding schools, they were not allowed to speak the Cherokee language. They forced them to learn how to speak English. If they were ever caught speaking the Cherokee language, they were severely punished. That's why when a lot of these people grew up and had children, a lot of them wouldn't teach their kids to speak Cherokee. They were afraid to, because what happened to them, they thought might also happen to their children for speaking their own native tongue. Today, here on the reservation, in the school systems, starting in daycare, we teach the little children how to speak Cherokee. In elementary, grades K through 6, it's taught as an introductory course. In high school, it's taught as any other foreign language taught inside a public school. It's taught along with Cherokee history. These are two mandatory classes. You must take them and you must pass before they'll allow you to graduate from high school. Shio Yaldaza, Ayang Galagin Shalole. Hello, how are you? I'm Buck Squirrel. Alstan Shonole Yaldaza, Alsikwaza, Ina. Kage Yui, Kawihawaduli, huh? You listen. Good morning, how are you? I'm doing fine. I love you, I want coffee, and hurry up. Ama, Agwaduli, huh? Ama is water. Agwaduli, huh? I want water. Ski, thank you. Wadum, you're welcome. Kaji used, who are you? Ilistan, Kana, hurry up, come over here. Shagwa, Kali, Joy, Nunk, Hishkin. That's counting to 5. A few animals, bear is Yona. Cat, Weshunk. Dog, Li. Groundhog, Algan. Rabbit, G-Stu. Horse, Shagwali. Well, that's an example of what the language sounds like when it's spoken. The dances, they are still used today by some people on the reservation. The reason why a lot of our people don't use them anymore is because we were introduced to Christianity, and this was through the white missionaries. Now, back then, a lot of our people were easily converted into Christians, began attending churches, and began using this verbal form of prayer, so we no longer needed to use the prayer dances. Today, here on the reservation in some churches, you can find songbooks that are printed in Cherokee and in English. The largest known translation today is the entire New Testament of the Bible, translated from the good old King James Version by a Cherokee preacher by the name of David Brown in 1832. Thanks to Sequoia and his writings, the teachings in the schools, the language will never die out. There's 2 things that cannot be done in the Cherokee language. 1, you cannot curse at anyone because there's no curse words in our language. 2, you can't tell anyone goodbye. There's no words for goodbye. Our people have always believed we'd see one another again, if not the next day, later on. A data dog with a sure no leg. A data dog with a Until we meet again, sure no leg, meaning in the morning or tomorrow. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this will complete my part of your tour. Is there anyone here that's already been to the council house yet? Have you been to the council house? Anybody? Okay. The council house is going to be your next stop. Now, I'll tell you, after you finish the council house, that will complete your whole tour through the village. But you are more than welcome to walk back through, take more pictures, talk to the workers. There's also the Indian Gardens. The entrance is located right beside the ticket office. That's about a 15-minute walk. That's something that you do on your own, no additional cost. Now, to get to the council house, you can take these steps or the pathway down the hill to the building down here on the left. Just go inside, find a seat. Next guide, she will be with you in just a couple of minutes. I do want to thank you folks for your attention. I hope you all have a wonderful afternoon. I hope you have a safe one. God bless you. Thank you very much.